So Craig's been with us now for almost 5 years. Basically, he set up the Witchy Proof group. Witchy Proof guys have been sort of left on their own a little bit over the years, and Craig came in, and it was an incredibly exciting period, basically, to see the kind of response that we got from that area. So Craig is by day he's a fencing contractor, and he works for us a couple of days a week or a day a week, pulling the Witchy Proof group together. Great bunch of people. I don't need to say any more. It's over to you.
No worries. Thanks, Phil. I suppose I'm here today to talk about the group and how we started the group, and I suppose the success of the group in some regards, and where from or where to. My background, 2009, left Witchy Proof. I was on a farm, decided to go elsewhere, had enough of farming, and came down here to Bendigo, did a bit of contract fencing, joined up with the CMA in some regards, ended up working with the CMA for a couple of years, and after leaving the CMA, I went back fencing, and I also do insurance work for crop assessing. So some of the guys at Bridgewater and SERP would know me just recently. So in 2013, early 2013, Phil approached me and said, Craig, would you do us a favour and go up to Witchy Proof and support them and find out logistically what needs to be done to get a group going, and I was too happy to do that. I've still got the farm up there and I lease it, so that sort of worked in well with me in regards that I live down here at Strathlasay. So we started the group in 2013, around about September or August. First couple of meetings we had 9 members, and by March 2014 we had 35. And the reason being is people, farmers, want to know about their soils. It's as simple as that. They want to know what on their patch, what their soils are doing, what their limitations are, what's the good characteristics of their soils. They just want to know. They want a hand to become and to make decisions to become better farmers. So before I go to that, hopefully this works. How do we click this, Phil? Sorry. It's come up here, but it hasn't come up there, Phil. Technology, fantastic, isn't it? Sorry about this.
How do you get me back onto that?
He only wanted me to talk for 20 minutes. I think that's well and truly gone by now. So, rightio.
Great.
So the Witchy Proof group is mainly dry land farmers. We extended the group and we took in Glenloth East in 2015, and so we've got some irrigation farmers in regards to that, but most of them are just dry land farmers, livestock, but mainly cropping. And the guys that are cropping in a big way. We've got some guys up to putting in 8,000 hectares or 20,000 acres. The group is actually made up of I've got 3 agronomists in that group, and I've specifically targeted those as 3 agronomists, which was, in hindsight, which was a great thing. I know some of the groups and some people think, well, don't think much of the agronomists. All they want to do is sell chemical and sell fertiliser. But these guys were fair income, they're honest sort of guys, and they were willing to share their information and knowledge. And I think you really need that input when you're talking to different experts in the field. Those agronomists came in so well, and they could relay the messages and put it simply the way the farmers wanted to know what was actually going on in the ground. So I'll get back to this. screen. So our areas from Witchy up to not quite to Nullawal, halfway across to Birchip, and then over to virtually halfway between Witchy and Bort. And then we extended the group in 2015 and we took the Glenloth East group on. So it went from virtually right across to Bort, right down to Wichitala and not quite to Quamatook. So it's a fair area, it's a fair spread of area and farming. But most of it is just dry land, and some of the guys are going into the livestock side of things. Our rainfall, well, people say it's dry. Well, we only get, on average, 320 to 350 mil, and lately it hasn't been really great. 2014, we did some trial work, and 2015 we did trial work, and it was both very, very dry years. So to keep the guys entertained in those dry years was incredibly hard. But I actually found that more of them turned up in those dry years because they really wanted to know about how to improve their soils. How do we make it more profitable? What's that? Oh, okay. Oh. I'm having fun here, aren't I? That's all right. Yep. So we end up, we did soil tests and we employed a soil scientist, and as you see, a lot of our soils are sodic soils. We had 20% or 15% of the area, we had a red duplex soil that had a really hard pan on it, and we did some deep ripping, and I'll show you some of the deep ripping we did. But the interesting part about all this was the hostile soils. We assumed that our soils were hostile down to a metre. And when after doing 66 soil pits, which is a lot of soil pits, and I'll show you the graph shortly, they're actually between 35 centimetres and 65 centimetres. And there's a little, and people say, well, there's not much difference between 35 centimetres and 65 centimetres. Yes, there is. One's doubled the amount of reserve and nutrients. So therefore, the reason for the difference in obviously yield and profitability. So we end up getting like some Mel Can, Doris Blessing and Christian Bannon. Christian Bannon did all our 66 soil pits, and they were invaluable. The guys really listened to these experts, and just to figure out how we're going to improve our soils and if it's worthwhile improving our soils. I mean, we can always improve our soils and spend a lot of money, but cost effectively, they've got to make a buck in doing that. So, and to get really back to basics, it's about basically learning about your soil. And once you learn about your soil, you can go on from there and do what Grant's done and Suzanne's done. So those couple of first years were really interesting. We really had the guys really intrigued, and there's a lot of questions. We've also found out that there was a lack of zinc in 80% of our soils. We had workshops, obviously, with Doris, and it was surprisingly that the workshops came up that most of our soils are pretty healthy, considering 2 years of drought, and we're quite surprised. A lot of the guys are direct drilling. There's not many guys that are actually the old conservation farming side, the cultivating side of things. Here's a snapshot of just that's the Witchy-proof group, not counting in the Glenloth group. So as you can see, it's fair. We covered a fair bit of ground. So it gave us a really good snapshot. So out of this, we've actually got a plan or a report, and we talk about legacy. This is probably one of the biggest legacies that this group has actually helped make is the fact that we've got a report to state what the characteristics of the area or the soils are in that area and current characteristics. So any other program that needs to start up, you've already got a Bible, as I call it, sitting there, and they can use that information so they don't have to go over it. There's Christian Bannon, there's Glenloth East Group, three of the grants. We really encourage to have family members joining, all family, women, kids, all those sort of things, because the more we can teach the adults, the more, and the kids being there, the more they're interested. And as Grant said, you know, worms, kids love worms and bugs. If you can see that's a hostile layer at 500. So the roots would actually grow down, hit that hostile layer and just go no further. Grey self-mulching clays. We had, I mean, obviously we had a lot of these sort of clays around the river. So they're cracking clays, a lot of times they're self-mulching clays, so they're not too bad as soils. But still, notice you've got your hostile layer down through there. We, after 2014, once we started getting some of the reports back, we said, well, rip E, we got this hard duplex soil with a hard pan through it. Let's just rip it up. And O'Sullivan's, gratefully, they own some country up there. That's the O'Sullivans from the Elmore district, which are taking over the world. I'm talking about the Elmore people are taking over the world. But they gratefully donated their time as well as their machine to do a trial with us. And we're really grateful for that. So I had a lot of people donating time, just not from the group, but outside the group. I mean, you've got Elders and Landmark and all these guys that were wanting to learn and to improve our soils. I suppose we get on to land management and protection. A lot of the guys, as I spoke about, are direct drillers now. Gone are the years of the 80s and 70s where you used to have the dust storms going through and those sort of things. It's really hard to explain to city people that the farmers actually care about their soils. They don't want them to blow away. And sometimes they need help from groups like the FSS groups, from the no-till groups, and sometimes they need government intervention to tell them and show them the right way of how to farm. And these groups I find fantastic because, as you can see, this is Tom Lord. He's actually an agronomist as well as a farmer from AgriVision, and he's explaining what he's done and how he's done it. We're doing a trial with liquid fertiliser. So that all came about from a visit to Grant Sims's place a couple of years later. So you talk about sowing the seed, that's what happens. We went to Grant's place, all of a sudden a couple of guys, or there's 3 guys in our group that had liquid fertiliser carts, and they'd sort of been in and out of it. So we went to Grant's place. We also went to Noel and Jeff Birkinshire's place up in Annuello, and we talked to them, and one-on-one with farmers, talking to Grant and Noel and Jeff, gave these guys the confidence to take that next step. So, and with all the other guys, they're all asking questions about it, so, which I find really fascinating. So sometimes when you turn up to an expert speaker, I find that the group actually finds just as much from each other as well as the expert. The expert just puts it out there, and there's a discussion takes place. So we'll go on to the next one. Late August 2015. The crop should be up knee height, hip height. This is what we're dealing with. So I actually had one farmer in 2014 strip 2/3 of his place. In 2015, he stripped 1/3 of his place. So he told me, this particular farmer, that he loved the group because he could go out and get a lot of his worries off his mind by talking to his neighbours through the group. So there's a really big social side of these groups. Then we come to 2016. Grant probably stole my thunder in regards to tillage radish, but I love this stuff. I absolutely love it. Out of the three trials that we did with the deep ripping, only one of them was a success. The other two, we brought up too much subsoil. So this was an alternative, and we could use it as forage as well. So that actual crop actually got up to about that height. And the tuber, we actually had a tuber as big as a dinner plate. It was just absolutely massive. What we did find is, and it was intriguing when Grant was sowing different seeds together. We found we actually sowed vetch seed with the radish seed, tillage radish seed, and we found when we got there, when it was at that height, thanks Phil, the nodules were wrapped around, from the vetch, was wrapped around the radish. So that was really interesting, and hence you've just reaffirmed what we thought, that there's a relationship between the two. We went big into liquid fert because the three guys had liquid fert carts. We went and visited Grant's and Niall's place, and because our test came back that there was a lack of zinc, we started mucking around with zinc fertiliser as well as Calex and some different stuff. So this was actually a trial that we did just the current year. We used a product called Foundation, and another one was a controlled and an APP. And we're not so much worried about the yield, but we're more worried about the root structure. To increase the carbon, you have to increase root structure in your soils. We had things like a disc air seeder day. We also, and it wasn't just a disc, so what I did was I contacted 5 farmers with 5 different air seeders. We had 20 guys turn up. Out of that, so it was in June when the crop was up, they had to have their air seeder where the crop was last sown, and the guys just went around and told the good parts of their air seeding rig and the bad parts. It's amazing from the confidence from one fella being there that day. He went and bought a $150,000 rig the following week. And he told me later that gave him the confidence. Controlled traffic. Yes, we've been on controlled traffic. Some of our guys have. And it's an interesting area, and I think that's the way of the future. So I just skipped through these. And we've done Sam Jolly Days, fantastic speaker. So when you're talking about cover crops, livestock, manure going back into the soil, Sam was really good. And that's why I pricked my ears up about the cover crops. I reckon there's a real future in those cover crops. We've also gone down the tech side of things, weather station, moisture probes. Grant's touched on them. We've got a Delta T, so now all the farmers, all they have to do is look at their phone. Within 15 minutes, they've got 15 minutes ago's data straight then and there on the Delta T. So we cover, we've got 5 of them, so we cover from Birchip all the way nearly to Bort, up to Nullawul, and nearly down to Wedderburn with these weather stations. And they're using them, and coming from a cropping assessing point of view, thank God, because the more data they've got out there to whether to spray or not, and we've had some incidents up north this year where it's affected cotton. Local communities coming together to improve knowledge and social wellbeing. It's so important in these days that the farmers have got so much information coming in and they don't know what to do with all that information. They push it to the side because they're so busy. Farming has actually changed in a lot, even in the 10 years that I've been out of it. And having groups like this, where you can chew the fat over certain ideas, but not only that, look after your mate. And there's a really big social side of things. And all these ideas, and I keep on saying it, are sowing the seed. We're sowing the seed for these guys to make a change and maybe go down, whether it's Suzanne's way of farming or Grant's way of farming. But change doesn't happen quickly. and there's a lot of pressure on these guys. From my point of view, I'd like to, I suppose from the Glenloth East and Witchy-Proof group, like to thank Phil and his staff. Darren Bain, Dags has been great out in the field with us, so has Phil, as well as Suzanne and Trace. I'd just like to thank, on behalf of the group, Brad and the CMA for taking us on board and letting us have a chance to be heard. And you guys actually make a difference. And I love hearing little things that have happened during the group and guys talking about things in the pub, at the football, of change and how they can change and how they can make life better for themselves, and not only that, better for the community. So that's where the improving knowledge and social wellbeing comes in. So anyway, that's my gig. Thank you.